Today I thought I would do a bit of a sketchbook tour, and this is recently finished sketchbook. It's an A6 ring-bound sketchbook that I like to carry around. So usually I reserve it for on-location sketching, urban sketching. It's a Sea White Brighton one, and it's cartridge paper, which is for the general mixed media use. I think it's 160 GSM. Yes, 160 GSM. So it's kind of got this decent thickness to it as well. I like to stamp my sketchbooks with the start date as well, so I know how long I've had it. I've had this one for quite some time, not been out enough sketching in it. And the first sketch was actually when I went to Vegas, and that was a work trip. We were staying at the Park MGM. I had breakfast every day at the Eataly in the hotel. And this was the last day before I was getting a flight back home. I thought I would just quickly sketch something over breakfast, but it had these amazing, this kind of very architectural structure in it that I was trying to capture here, set amongst some of the greenery. And then I did a quick wander outside. So this was on the Strip, looking at Paris, obviously not the real Eiffel Tower. We were still in Las Vegas, but I remember sketching this on a little walkover bridge, and there was someone playing an accordion right next to me, so it was very loud. It was kind of pretty busy, cars streaming below, but yeah, I just remember that really clearly. Another little quick scribble on the Strip of the MGM sign, and then on to Cyprus. Spent a week in Cyprus and stopped on a little drive at this visitor centre. It was like a very modernist building set in this little garden, so just sat down very quickly and sketched that. And then this was a trip to Ayia Napa, a lunch sketch. So I always find that when I'm sat down with a few minutes to spare, I pull out the sketchbook and do a little quick scribble whilst waiting for food to arrive. This was one of the many churches that you can see out in Cyprus, in Protaras. This is Agios Nikolaos, and it was so noisy because there were construction works happening right next to it, and also very windy, and I really didn't enjoy making this sketch because I can't stand it when the wind is blowing crazily and my hair's getting everywhere and it starts to irritate me. So I was really having a bad time of that. But then we went off for lunch at this seafood restaurant that friends recommended called Kalami's, and I could still see the church. So I did a little sketch of the church there, and you can see some of the construction work happening here as well in the background with the cranes and so on. So that was good. It was a bit calmer when I was sat down under a bit of a roof, even though it was al fresco. So this is back in London. This was a little sketch from a coffee shop. And this was another airport sketch, but a really terrible airport sketch. I think it looks like Angry Bird. It was actually my Virgin Atlantic flight from LA. And then this was also in LA. I was at the airport and I'd stopped to have some dinner, some tacos, and just sketched what was in front of me. I was sat at the bar. So a quick sketch there. Back in London, another coffee shop view. This was in Shoreditch. It's one of my lunchtime challenge where I try to take half an hour out to sketch whatever I can before grabbing lunch and heading back to the office. And then another trip. This was Menorca. It was a super windy day forecast, so head out in a museum. This was the Museum of Menorca, a really beautiful place actually, lovely archways and so on. So I tried to capture a bit of that and a stand-up sketch, and then later a sit-down sketch over sangria in the Mercado de Mercado. This was a trip to Binibeka, still in Menorca, and it was really quick because I've written here it's 7 minutes, but it was basically sat on a rock by the sea, super peaceful. So just a few simple lines there to capture this little building that was sort of set out all on its own against this amazing backdrop. This one was also Menorca, but at Cittadella, so the other side of the island. I was sat down in this one under the shade of a tree, which was very helpful, but it was some lovely shadows cast in this square, so captured some of that. It was actually a really busy parking spot, so there was quite a lot of cars in front. And you can see I tried to doodle some of those in as well. Some rough doodles. This was still in Menorca. This was actually in the foothills of Mount Toro's little place called Es Mercado. It was lunchtime, but I think it was a Sunday actually. Yeah, it was a Sunday, so it was super quiet. And even though there were a lot of locals about, there was still quite a few places that were closed, but this was a lovely spot to sit down and sketch despite the huge amount of flies that were buzzing around, which did make the sketch a little bit irritating. More in Mahon. This was again another lunch sketch, so just grabbing any opportunity where I'm waiting for food or drink and sitting down. Some more doodles. And then this is again Menorca, but in a place called Es Castel, which is really lovely, calm port. And I sat under this little tree with a sangria and sketching lots of people enjoying their lunch. This one's off the waterfront. It was a super quick one, lots of boats. And then I tried to draw a boat in Es Castel. It was very tricky. I think it's something that I need to do more, might get more practice in. And then across to the other side of the pond, this was New York, and I was there for work. So I grabbed a quick 30 minutes before my meeting started to draw the standard high line. I stayed there before many years ago, so it's a place that holds many happy memories. This was the other side of the US on a trip to Florida. It was my first time in Florida, so this was the University of Tampa, which also hosts the Henry B. Plant Museum. So I had a interesting afternoon wandering around the museum, having a little mulled, I think it was actually mulled cider, not mulled wine. It was Christmas time, so even though it was super hot, super sunny, didn't feel very Christmassy for someone from the UK. It was Christmas time, we were drinking mulled cider. And this is the university, which is just incredible. There's turrets everywhere. It feels super Byzantine. It's actually a mix of different architectural styles. This was actually Orlando, a really quick 5-minute sketch of the incredible Hulk coaster, which I did not go on. And then the next few sketches are all of Miami. Loved Miami because it had just this amazing amount of Art Deco architecture to explore, and I think the next few are all of that. So this was the Lincoln Center on Miami Beach. This was actually sitting on South Beach and sketching some of the hotels that sort of all line that beachfront. I love a palm tree, so I have to get those in. This is the old Lincoln Theatre, which is now an H&M store, and this was a 30-minute sort of stand-up sketch. And then some lovely Art Deco on Ocean Drive. So this is the Colony Hotel. It's a bit sad I couldn't get this amazing car in. Some more hotels on Ocean Drive, a view from the pool looking over Lincoln Center there. And then on the way home at the airport, this is at Miami Airport, looking at this flight here. It was an American airline flight and it was getting restocked. I think the thing about drawing airports is there's always so much going on as well. So there's always these big lorries and luggage trucks and food fueling trucks and so on, and ladders everywhere. So it's always kind of pretty hectic. And then I was back in Vegas again. So back at the same hotel, back at the Eataly. So it's a different view of that same space. And then a few more of the boulevard. So this was a quick stand up. I think it was about 10 to 15 minutes. I had noticed here. Stood by the street, sketching these buildings here. And then back in London, it's a Portland place. Before a quick capture of the Rock of Gibraltar from the airport lounge in Gibraltar. I was at the BA lounge there. And then a few more of London when I was out and about at Brick Lane and around Mansion House. This one is of the National Gallery in London. I was invited to the launch party where they relaunched the Sainsbury wing. So this was a huge queue of people waiting to get in. So I thought I'd join the queue and pull my sketchbook out. And then a few animals at the zoo. Piggies in their pigsty, a few birds. Very difficult to draw these as they were moving around. I was really interested in the shape of the tail and then kind of the beak. And then I went to see the V&A East Storehouse when it launched in its first week, and I was a bit thrown because I wasn't allowed to bring pens in, and had to borrow a very stubby pencil from where they leave pencils out for comments. And I actually tried this twice. I'm definitely going to go back to do it properly and maybe bring a bigger sketchbook. It was quite a large scene to try and fit into this little thing, and not a particularly good sketch day there. And then this is the only sketch where I wasn't on location actually. It was from a reference photo I took when I visited the Natural History Museum, and I love this room. It's the one with all the gemstones on the first floor. And then last but not least, this one was of St Mary Le Strand. This is on the Strand, this amazing church. All the streets have been redone around here, so there's a lot of pedestrianised areas, there's lovely places to sit. But this was in the middle of the London heat wave. It was so hot. So there you go, that's the end of my on location sketchbook tour.